The silk scarf slipped from Margaret Chen's trembling fingers and pulled at her feet like a surrender flag. 23 years. 23 years of bedtime stories, scraped knees, first days of school, and whispered secrets in the dark, all reduced to a single pink slip and a security escort waiting by the door. "Please," Margaret whispered, her voice barely audible in the cavernous marble foyer of the Harrison estate. "Let me at least say goodbye to Emma." Richard Harrison's jaw was set like granite, his steel-gray eyes refusing to meet hers. "That won't be necessary. My daughter will adjust. She always does." Margaret had known this man since he was grieving and lost, cradling a newborn daughter he didn't know how to love after his wife's death in childbirth. She'd watched him build an empire while she built something far more precious, a childhood for the little girl who had no mother. And now he stood before her, a stranger in an expensive suit, with his new wife Victoria draped on his arm like an accessory, her red lips curved in a smile that never reached her eyes. "Richard, please," Margaret started, but Victoria's laugh cut through the air like glass breaking. "Oh, for heaven's sake. She's the help, darling. Emma will have a proper nanny now. Someone more appropriate for our social standing." Victoria's perfectly manicured hand gestured dismissively. "Someone younger, with actual credentials from prestigious institutions, not just some woman who happened to be available 8 years ago." Margaret felt each word like a physical blow. She'd raised Emma from 6 months old, had been there for every fever, every nightmare, every milestone. She'd taught the little girl to read, to be kind, to see the beauty in small things. She'd been there when Richard was traveling for business, which was almost always, and she'd been there on the rare evenings he was home, quietly fading into the background so father and daughter could have their moments together. The security guard shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting this scene to end. Margaret bent slowly, her 62-year-old knees protesting, and picked up the scarf. It had been a gift from Emma last Christmas, painstakingly chosen with her own allowance money. "It's blue like your favorite cardigan, Maggie," Emma had said, her 8-year-old face shining with pride. "And it has little books on it because you love reading to me." "My things?" Margaret managed to ask. "Already packed and in your quarters," Richard said, his voice clipped and businesslike, the same tone he probably used in boardroom meetings. "You'll receive 2 weeks severance pay. The car will take you wherever you need to go." Margaret wanted to scream that she didn't care about the money, that she'd worked for far less than she deserved because she loved Emma more than life itself. But pride kept her spine straight as she turned toward the grand staircase one last time, hoping for a glimpse of the little girl who held her heart. The house was too quiet. Emma should have been home from school by now, should have been bursting through the door with stories about her day, looking for Margaret in the kitchen where she always prepared afternoon snacks, apple slices with peanut butter, cut into star shapes because it made Emma smile. "She's at a playdate," Victoria said, reading Margaret's thoughts with cruel precision. "We thought it best that she not be here for this." As the security guard escorted her to the service entrance, not even allowed the dignity of leaving through the front door she'd entered thousands of times, Margaret heard the sound that would haunt her dreams. A car door slamming, quick footsteps, and then a voice that could shatter mountains. "Maggie." Emma Harrison burst through the front door, her school uniform askew, her dark braids coming loose, her face streaked with tears. Behind her, a flustered driver tried to explain something about the playdate being cancelled, but his words were lost in Emma's anguished cry. "No, no, no, no." Emma launched herself at Margaret, small arms wrapping around her waist with desperate strength. "You can't go. You can't leave me." Margaret's carefully maintained composure crumbled. She dropped to her knees, pulling Emma close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo and the faint smell of chalk from school. "Oh, sweetheart, my sweet girl. Daddy, stop this." Emma whirled on her father, her face red and blotchy with tears, her chest heaving. "You can't fire Maggie. She's not just a nanny, she's my family. She's the only mother I've ever known." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Richard flinched as if struck, his face paling. Victoria's expression hardened, her hand tightening on Richard's arm. "Emma, darling, you're being dramatic," Victoria said in a voice dripping with false sweetness. "You'll have a wonderful new nanny. Miss Pemberton comes from London, with impeccable references. She's cared for children of diplomats and—" "I don't want Miss Pemberton. I want Maggie." Emma's voice rose to a shriek that echoed through the foyer. Maggie reads to me every night. She knows I'm afraid of thunderstorms. She remembers that I don't like the crust on my sandwiches and that I sleep with Mr. Fuzzy facing the door because he's protecting me. She knows everything about me because she loves me. Emma, that's enough. Richard's voice was firm, but Margaret could see the cracks forming in his armor. His hands were trembling slightly, and he couldn't quite meet his daughter's eyes. It's not enough, Emma sobbed, clinging harder to Margaret. You're never here, Daddy. You missed my school play and my soccer games and Parents' Day because you were always working. Maggie was there for everything. Every single thing. When I had pneumonia last winter and I thought I was going to die, it was Maggie who stayed up all night holding my hand and singing to me. Where were you? Tokyo, Singapore, somewhere more important than me. The words struck Richard like physical blows. Margaret saw him sway slightly, saw the businessman's mask begin to crack, revealing the grieving widower who'd never learned how to be present for his daughter. Emma, please, Margaret whispered, stroking the little girl's hair. Don't talk to your father like that. Why not? It's true. Emma pulled back to look at Margaret, her brown eyes, so like her father's, swimming with tears. You always defend him, but he doesn't deserve it. He's sending away the only person who really loves me. That's not true, sweetheart. Margaret cupped Emma's face gently. Your father loves you very much. He's just lost sometimes. People can love each other and still make mistakes. This isn't a mistake, it's cruel. Emma turned back to Richard, her small body shaking. Maggie taught me to be kind. She taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you even when it's hard. She's been my family every single day of my life that I can remember. And you're throwing her away like she's nothing. Victoria made a sound of exasperation. Richard, this has gone on long enough. Take control of your daughter. She's being completely inappropriate and... Shut up. Emma screamed at Victoria with a ferocity that shocked everyone. You're the reason this is happening. You hate Maggie because Daddy sometimes talks about how grateful he is for her, and you're jealous. You want to erase everything from before you came along, but you can't erase Maggie from my heart. She's in every good memory I have. Emma Harrison. Richard's voice boomed through the foyer, finally breaking through his paralysis. But when Emma turned to face him, her tear-stained face full of betrayal and heartbreak, he seemed to shrink. You can't speak to Victoria that way. Why? She can treat Maggie like trash, but I have to be respectful. Emma's voice broke. You always taught me, well, actually, Maggie taught me, to stand up for what's right. To protect people who can't protect themselves. So that's what I'm doing. Margaret tried to stand, to remove herself from this awful scene, but Emma's grip was iron. Please, Emma, let me go, sweetheart. This is only making it harder. No, if you leave, I leave. Emma declared wildly. I'll run away. I'll find you and I'll stay with you and Daddy can have his big empty house with his new wife and his new nanny and his money, but he won't have me. Emma, you don't mean that, Richard said, but his voice was uncertain now, wavering. I do mean it, every word. Emma's tears flowed freely now. Did you know that Maggie sends money to her sister every month even though she doesn't earn very much? Did you know she volunteers at the children's hospital on her days off, reading to sick kids? Did you know she saved every drawing I ever made her, keeps them in boxes under her bed organized by year? Did you know any of that, Daddy? Do you know anything about the woman who raised your daughter while you were too busy making millions? The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret could see the truth dawning on Richard's face. He hadn't known any of those things. In 8 years, he'd never taken the time to really see her, to know her as anything more than a fixture in his home. I know her favorite color is purple, Emma continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. I know she cries during sad movies but tries to hide it. I know she has a garden in the back courtyard where she grows vegetables for the kitchen. I know she calls her sister every Sunday morning at 9. I know she kept every birthday card I ever made her. I know she has arthritis in her hands but never complains. I know she's scared of flying but won't tell you because you might think she can't travel with me. I know she dreams of seeing Paris someday. I know she gave up having her own family to help raise me. Emma's voice cracked on the last words, and she buried her face in Margaret's cardigan. I know she's the best person I've ever met, and if you fire her, Daddy, I'll never forgive you. Never. Margaret held Emma close, her own tears finally falling. She looked up at Richard and saw something she'd never seen before, genuine emotion breaking through the careful walls he'd built around himself. His eyes were wet, his jaw trembling. Richard, Victoria hissed, you're not actually considering. Victoria, please. He held up a hand, silencing her. For a long moment, he just stared at his daughter and the woman who'd raised her, really looking at them for perhaps the first time. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse. Emma, do you remember your mother at all? Emma shook her head against Margaret's shoulder. No, you wouldn't. You were just a baby. Richard moved closer, slowly, as if approaching something fragile. When she died, I wanted to die too. I held you in my arms and felt nothing but terror. I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know how to even look at you without seeing everything I'd lost. Victoria's face had gone white, but Richard continued, ignoring her. Margaret was the nurse who helped me in those first awful days in the hospital. She showed me how to hold you, how to feed you. And when we came home to this empty house, and I was drowning in grief and fear, she was the one who said she'd stay. Just for a few weeks, she said, until I found someone permanent. His laugh was bitter. I was such a coward. I let those weeks turn into months, and months into years, because it was easier to let her love you than to figure out how to do it myself. Richard, we don't need to air all of this, Victoria started, but Richard shook his head. Yes, we do. Emma deserves the truth. He knelt down, putting himself at eye level with his daughter. I threw myself into work because it was the only thing that made sense to me. Balance sheets and contracts and deals, those I could understand. But a little girl who looked so much like the wife I'd lost. I was terrified, Emma. So I let Margaret be everything you needed while I hid behind my career. Then why are you firing her? Emma's voice was small now, confused. Richard glanced at Victoria, and Margaret saw something pass between them, a conversation they'd had before. Victoria thought, we thought, it would be good for you to have a more professional arrangement. Someone who could tutor you in languages and music, prepare you for the society you'll be part of. Someone who would make me disappear. Margaret said quietly. All eyes turned to her. She took a deep breath, finding courage she didn't know she had. Victoria wants you to herself, Richard. She wants to remake this family in her image, and I'm a reminder of everything that came before. Emma's not wrong. This isn't about what's best for her. It's about erasing the past. Victoria's mask finally slipped, her face twisting with anger. How dare you? You're nothing but a servant. You have no right to. She has every right, Emma shouted. She earned the right by being here. By loving me. What have you done except show up 6 months ago and try to change everything? Emma, that's not fair, Richard said, but there was no conviction in his voice. Isn't it? Emma challenged. Victoria made you get rid of Mom's piano. She redecorated Mom's garden. She threw away the photo albums Maggie made of me growing up because she said they were too sentimental. She's trying to erase everyone who was here before her. Margaret watched the truth settle over Richard like snow. She could see him adding up all the small changes, all the subtle manipulations, seeing them clearly for the first time. Is that true? He asked Victoria. The photo albums. Those were Emma's memories. They were taking up space, and Emma never looked at them anymore, Victoria said defensively. I was just trying to help the household move forward instead of living in the past. They were in Maggie's room. Emma cried. My room. You came into my private space and took my things. Richard, are you going to let her speak to me this way? Victoria's voice had gone shrill. But Richard wasn't looking at Victoria anymore. He was looking at Margaret, really looking at her, perhaps for the first time in 8 years. You gave up Paris, he said softly. Margaret blinked, surprised. What? Emma said you dream of seeing Paris. 5 years ago, remember? You had that week off when your sister was getting married. She got married in Boston, but you'd planned to extend the trip, to fly to Paris after. You'd saved for 2 years. And then Emma got that stomach flu, and I was in the middle of the Singapore merger, and you. He trailed off, the memory crystallizing. You canceled your trip. You gave me back the time off and stayed with Emma. I never even asked why. I just accepted it. She needed me, Margaret said simply. The trip could wait, but it didn't wait, did it? Because there was always something. Always another crisis, another business trip where I needed you to stay with Emma. And you just stayed. Richard's voice was thick with emotion. Why? Margaret looked down at Emma, who was watching her with those big brown eyes, and smiled through her tears. Because love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Emma needed someone to be constant in her life, someone she could count on absolutely. And I loved her too much to be anything less than that. I'll give you double your salary, Richard said suddenly, desperately. Triple it. I'll give you the cottage on the property, make it yours, not just staff housing. Richard, this isn't about money, Margaret interrupted gently. It's never been about money. Then what? Tell me what you want, and it's yours. Richard looked frantic now, the composed businessman completely gone. Please, I can't. Emma's right. I've been a terrible father. I've let work consume me, let fear keep me distant. But she's wrong about one thing. I do love her. God, I love her so much it terrifies me. And she's also right that you're the only reason she's the incredible person she is. You've given her stability and love and everything I should have given her but didn't know how. Emma pulled away from Margaret to look at her father. Do you mean that, Daddy? Every word. Richard's voice broke. I've made so many mistakes, Emma. But the biggest one was taking Margaret for granted. Was not seeing what a gift it was to have someone who loved you so purely, so selflessly. Then she can stay. Emma's hope was almost painful to witness. Richard turned to Victoria, and Margaret saw the decision being made in real time. Victoria, I think we need to talk. Privately. Victoria's face went through a series of expressions. Shock, anger, calculation, and finally, cold understanding. I see. You're choosing the nanny over your wife. I'm choosing my daughter, Richard said quietly. I should have done it a long time ago. I'm sorry, Victoria, but I think we both know this marriage was built on grief and loneliness, not love. You wanted a lifestyle, and I wanted someone to make me feel less guilty about being an absent father. Neither of those are good reasons. You're making a huge mistake, Victoria hissed. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Richard kept his eyes on Emma as Victoria stormed out, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. The door slammed, making everyone flinch. In the silence that followed, Emma launched herself at her father, hugging him with the same desperate intensity she'd shown Margaret. Daddy, I'm sorry I said all those mean things. No, sweetheart, you were right about almost everything. Richard held his daughter close, his eyes meeting Margaret's over Emma's head. Margaret, I can't undo the pain I've caused you today. I can't give you back the 8 years I wasted not appreciating you. But I'm begging you, please stay. Not as just a nanny, but as family. Because that's what you are. That's what you've always been. Margaret felt a sob building in her chest. She'd dreamed of hearing these words, of being truly seen, but she'd never imagined it would happen like this. Please, Maggie, Emma added, pulling away from her father to take Margaret's hand. Stay with us. We need you. I need you. Margaret looked at the little girl who'd been the joy of her life for 8 years, and at the man who was finally seeing beyond his own pain. She thought about Paris, about dreams deferred, about the life she'd put on hold. But she also thought about Emma's laugh, about bedtime stories and scraped knees and the fierce love that had grown in her heart. On one condition, Margaret said, her voice steady now. Anything, Richard said immediately. We all go to Paris. Together. This summer. Margaret squeezed Emma's hand. It's time this family made some new memories. Good ones. All of us. Emma's squeal of delight echoed through the foyer, and for the first time, the massive house felt like it might actually become a home. Richard smiled. A real smile, soft and genuine. Paris it is. And Margaret, thank you. For everything. For raising my daughter into someone who could teach me what really matters. For loving her when I was too broken to figure out how. For being the kind of person worth fighting for.